What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Deep Hours, and we're back with another pair of archetypes, Control and Combo. Starting off with Control, we talked with my friend John Kennedy about his Yuriko control list and how he thinks it's positioned currently in the meta. But to get us started, could you tell me who you are and what archetype of Yuriko you play?
Yeah, my name is John. I'm John Kennedy on Discord and most places people could find me. And I am the guy known for playing what people would call control. Some people may call the stacks variant.
Do you think it's a stacks Yuriko or a control Yuriko? Because I know, ooh, stacks nowadays does not feel great to play.
Yeah, I mean, it is the archetype of control, but I think like what differentiates control from people like mid-range or tempo who also are controlling the board, we all play boatloads of free counters, is the persistent lingering onboard effects that sort of slow the game down enough for you to generate more advantage, right? So I mean, I think the stacks are a critical part of it.
Yeah. And I definitely think that's true. Like, obviously, some lists run Grafdigger's Cage or they run Curse Totem or Null Rod because they know that, hey, in my meta, I know I'm going to see these decks. So, like,
Mhm.
if those decks still play those, what makes this archetype different than just, say, a tempo deck that just plays a Null Rod?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk to any Yuriko variant, we'll all say the same thing, which is the lists are similar for at least, 80, 85 cards a lot of the time. A lot
Yeah.
of what differentiates them is sort of the philosophy or the play style, right? It's about what you mulligan for, what you prioritize, how you play around the table. And I mean, you look at my list, which is the stock control list, compared to like tempo with a null rod, and it's run Blood Chief, Counterbalance, Curse Totem, Damping Sphere, Douthie, May, Null Rod, Weather Runestone, still on Oppo, Rug of Smothering. There's a
Okay.
lot of pieces in here, and that's sort of both for like overage of effects and also redundancy of knowing in my mulligans, I can expect to see at least one of these hate pieces, and I can mulligan for the right one depending on the matchup, right? Instead of just one loose silver bullet in the 99.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. There's a lot of hate pieces, and as you said, there's a decent amount of overlap. But with this amount, you're in the first 14 cards you see with your free mulligan and your second seven, you're bound to see at least one of them.
Mhm. And some are
But
more impactful than others, right? I mean, there's
yeah,
pods where I know if I mulligan down to 4 for Ancient Tomb, Null Rod, any two random cards, I probably win the pod. It's
yeah,
that easy. Similarly, a lot of keeps that just have a turn one Blood Chief Ascension are very, very strong, and I think still underrated, even though people do love to hate on it in, an open tournament meta. There so many of these pieces just like make your hand a snap keep, even if it has no enabler. I think the big differentiator from this list to a lot of the other variants is that our plan is almost never turn one enabler, turn two Yuriko. I think that's the big philosophy differences. My plan is turn one, maybe just hold up a mana, maybe do nothing, hopefully have something to do, get down some sort of engine or stacks piece. Turn two, some impactful two drop stacks piece. And then hopefully turn three, maybe there's a Yuriko, we'll see. But it's the focus of the deck is never losing the game in the first 3 or 4 turns and making sure you see turn five and beyond. And then sort of the theme of this is Yuriko will just eventually burn enough if
get
you're getting
there.
to turn 6 or 7 that you get there. And if you can survive the turbo decks and set up the other mid-range decks to have engines to stop them in the later turns also, then everyone's kind of stalling out. And if you can control that stall out, if you have a Curse Totem so you're not losing to the Thrasios deck, or you have a Null Rod so you're not losing to the Cabbage Merchant on turn 6, there's a lot of advantage you can press just by trying to poke in with evasion, get a couple of pings, generate some card draw.
Okay. So would you say this is closer? Like, yeah, we play Yuriko, and sounds like if you can get to doing the Yuriko thing, cool. But if your game plan is more or less to say, here is a hate piece that you guys have to answer before you can do anything else. In that case, does that mean you would say this is similar to? Now, this is going to sound crazy when I say it, but like the Rog Ishai type of deck that wants to kind of just hold interaction and have answers for everything. Would you say it's kind of similar in what it wants to be doing in that sense?
It's similar only in that they both are trying to go for the long game. I think of
Okay.
Rog Ishai as more of a parasitic deck that is looking to land an advantage engine and then say, I'm not the problem, win really, and just keep, snowballing huge piles of cards with their 2 Ristic Studies until you pass to them and they have 20 in hand, and obviously they win the game. I
Yeah.
think this strategy is it's similar in that you're trying to survive the early turns, get everyone to agree, I'm not pushing a win early, right? Uh, but what happens after that is not there's some turn where I end up with 20 in hand, almost never.
Yeah.
It's I have essentially a bad Timna, right? I draw 2, maybe 3 cards a turn with Yuriko if I have no other advantage engine, right? You're not like snowballing the table, but it's sort of
A
protect the
gradual
most
thing.
important piece. Because when I land a Null Rod, it is very, very hard to lose the game. The number one way you lose is you keep beating down the table. It's sort of the slow death spiral. And then on turn 7, with everyone at 5 life, someone bounces the Null Rod and then wins the game, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of what you have to do when you're playing control is, trying to enforce good threat assessment
Play
of the table,
patterns. Yeah.
which is especially hard in like an open tournament meta. If people, I think people, especially if they are not, big tournament grinders and maybe coming from casual, they see like Yuriko
Yeah.
and Winota as the boogeyman. And, oh man, I know that deck is crazy. It's like,
Yeah.
that like I don't win out of nowhere. There's a breach deck right next to me that on any given turn could just explode. I'm going to poke you
Yeah.
again and pass, right? So trying to enforce who the real problems are, keep people sort of working against each other and knowing, like recognizing what the real threats are. I say it a lot when I'm playing. I'll land a turn 1 Blood Chief and people say, oh man, that, is so bad. I say, that's true, but we all
It
need to be
stops the
aware
unfair
that
decks.
at any moment that breach deck, they can just bounce this and win. So like I'm gonna keep slowly poking, but they could explode any given turn from turn 2 to turn 10. That could be the turn that they go from nothing to everything. And my deck is a very slow, methodical, you see it coming at you, right? And maybe you think the advantage is insurmountable at a certain point, but it's not the sort of quick tipping point
Yeah.
that a lot of like the red based decks are in the format.
That's definitely true. And I'll admit, obviously I've been playing Yuriko for a while. I'd say that both control and combo Yuriko are the two that I have the least amount of actual experience with. So like seeing this deck feels really different to me because in my eyes, I see what kind of happens. And tell me if this is wrong, but at least how I've always seen like the control style Yuriko, they get into a game, they land, say, early game null rod, slows down the table, everybody deploys rocks, they don't do anything. But because we deployed the null rod, our tempo for the Yuriko game plan is usually a little slower. And because we're not on a heavy burn strategy because of what we're wanting to do, even when we get Yuriko in, we don't have a whole lot of things that are those big hits for her. So the table does tend to forget, hey, this is annoying, but like we're not dying. Like we're maybe taking 1 to 3. Okay.
Mhm.
And then someone, typically either the real turbo deck, will decide, man, I'm at like 25. Use it or lose it, guys. And they decide it's time to push right now. They get rid of your stacks
Mhm.
piece, immediately go for it, lose to a mid-range deck, and then that deck can untap and win. And that's always been like
Yeah.
my biggest hang up with playing a more control Yuriko, because I've always, at least in the past, and for the most part, currently, any deck that I've seen that tries to play the more control game seems to be punished for it, because everyone doesn't respect that they should also be having that interaction and mulliganing for it. And because
Mhm.
of that, they immediately say, damn, that's crazy. You have counter spells? Yeah, you should use those. And then they go for win attempt after win attempt, and you just run out of ways to stop them.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, your point of once the stacks piece is gone, there's only so many counters, right? I play packs with seven
Yeah.
in hand. Cards take cards to pitch. There's only so many answers you can have. Uh, I think a lot of the strength of the deck lies in how you pilot it politically. And this, I think, is a deck that, number one, will really reward your intimate knowledge of your deck and the other decks in the format and exactly what cards you need to needle them, what they're going to try and do so you can explain it to your other opponents. Hey, I see that you hate this Douthie, but like there's nothing else in my list that will stop this Lumra. If you kill this, we lose on the spot. You know, there's a lot of political discussion that happens around when do we need to remove this? When should we be holding up answers? I think in a lot of tournaments, my pregame is to say, hey, I am the default control deck for the Yuriko Discord. I will win no sooner than turn 7. And that's always a fact. Even in tournaments, all my wins basically come turn 7 after.
Man.
And that's just to set the stage of like, I hear that you may be annoyed about this turn 1 null rod. It's not going to be, you're going to have so long to deal with it yourself that you should try to be setting up an engine and making sure you also can't lose, because I'm making sure we can't lose for the first 5 turns, and then I'm going to turn the
Yeah.
corner. Um, and I think like being willing to talk to your opponents that way, show people cards in your hand. I'll show people cards in my hand all the time throughout the match. I almost never show one person my entire hand, but I will show every individual card to different people. Just even, I might show someone an Ancient Tomb just to make the turbo player feel a little more like, oh, they're talking about something, right? And I think it's good to play into that perception people have of Yuriko as free spell tribal, right? We play the
Okay.
forces, we play the flares, we play commandeer before other people were. We're on misdirect. We're on so many free both counters and removal that even tapped out, people fear the deck a lot. And turbo decks know that if you sort of are
Yeah.
posturing that way and you're showing other people cards and you're saying, this is what I have, you know, people are afraid to jam into this deck without backup. And so they want to wait another turn to have backup. And by that time, maybe another deck also has backup for their win that they're going to have to use on that first win attempt. So you can't win just on the basis of the cards in our deck are better, because they're not. Blue Farm just
Yeah.
has better cards. We're playing Ornithopter Tribal with some stacks, and
We're
other
doing
decks
our
play
best. Yeah.
no bad cards, right? So you can't just say my deck is the best, I'm gonna win. You really have to like lean into what is the table's perception of me? How can I use that to my advantage? And how can I help convince maybe the third most threatening player? Maybe there's a Glarb at the table or a Thrasios deck. Hey man, I need you to help me stop the Rog Sign, the blue farm, right? You and me know that they're going to breach and they can do it out of nowhere. And we need to be working together. So trying to like forge strategic partnerships with who you think is lowest in the pecking order makes a huge difference in like how the game plays out.
Okay. This does seem like, as you said, a lot of the Yuriko decks, basically the same deck, save for like 15 to 20 cards, combo notwithstanding, because combo is a completely different deck. But
Yeah.
that being the case, it seems like for the most part, you can basically kind of just play up like, hey, we need to deal with these decks. I'm a slow deck. We're never getting there on my, like, I'm never winning at instant speed, at least not me. So you are safe to help me deal with whatever the problem is. And just kind of whoever happens to be the least advantaged, you kind of just get to freely talk to them like that, which I do think is a very strong thing that Yuriko gets to do. And I do think there is something that is, loss is a strong word, but like, I know I'm on a Yuriko build that wants to be flipping, wants to make those flips really impactful, to quickly make life totals very relevant as quickly as possible. And I can see that like the biggest problem I run into is that yes, well, I'm not a threat, not on my turn. On my turn, everyone is afraid of what I'm doing. Mostly because they're like anything can come off the top. And to be
Yeah.
fair, in my local meta, they know what my Yuriko's trying to do. So like I can't tell them like, guys, it's nothing crazy, because they've been playing with it for like years at this point. So like fair, but I do think that is a real downside to wanting to lean into making Yuriko's flips feel more impactful, is that it's harder to politic with people because your damage goes everywhere. And like if you have
Yeah.
no control over it, like man, I could hit 15 and maybe that does stop us from losing to the necropotents on Roxai, but that might just kill Glarb. And so
Right.
Glarb maybe is
And,
incentivized to say like, maybe I don't let you do that because I don't want to die. Even if you
yeah.
can try to say like the math says you won't.
But it can also put you in scenarios like that where, let's say I have a vamp tutor and someone could let me in, but they happen to be one lower than the player that's about to win. They can't let me do it because they will lose, right? There is no way
Yeah.
for me to like get a Timna draw off of them and kill the other player and not them. So that
Yeah.
that symmetric aspect, I mean, it is the largest benefit to Yuriko compared to other, I'm going to use the word aggro stacks decks like Winota that have to sort of pick and choose where you're pointing damage every turn. The fact that ours
Yeah.
is symmetric is very helpful in sort of keeping everyone down together. But
Yeah.
as you spiral that drain in the end game, it is you have that conversation of well, it could be a 15 drop, 1 in 80 chance, and yeah, I could print out my Moxfield deck and show them average mana value of 2. No one
Yeah.
cares. They're like, yeah, but that doesn't matter. It could be
But like, what
anything.
if I
And
die?
this,
What if I die?
yeah. And it's like, well, you could, but what are the odds you untap again if we just like pass through those two other guys? Right. Like, I bet there's a
Yeah,
greater chance that they kill you with cards that say win the game instead of like a 1
exactly.
in 70 flip.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I do wonder what, because I know you're on a lot of hate pieces. Recently, we've seen a rise of the funny Ristics copy meta of everyone playing, copying Ristics, Mystics, Smothering Tides. Has any particular stacks piece been stand out since we've seen this kind of resurgence of Ristic study recently?
I mean, all Yuriko decks know it, but Orcish Bowmasters is like the best and worst card printed for this deck in, years.
Ah,
It's a card that if I'm
yeah,
mulligan to 3 with land consultation, I'm happy because I know I can just consult for Bowmaster end of turn 1. And that card usually digs me out of any hole. It's worth 2 bodies for ninjutsu. It punishes draw. It creates new bodies all the time. It pressures life totals. It does everything that we want. But it gets cloned and you feel like your life is over. So that,
yeah,
is a double-edged sword. I
yeah,
think in the meta of ROG Ishai, everyone looking to draw 100 cards and sit around, you want stacks pieces that have incremental value, right? Norod says no one can win the game. And that is very, very powerful. There's very few decks that will win while it is in play. Um, but cards like Bloodchief Ascension that say you can't breach, but also as the game goes on into turn 5, 6, 7, 8, you are getting lower and lower, and you are more within striking distance of my, plan A. Same with cards like cards like Rug of Smothering that say you can't storm into them, which storm is, the most likely way that we lose quickly, whether it's Ral or a Tali or a breach loop from someone out of nowhere, Dargo loops.
Yeah.
Cards like this just say you can't do that, and you are going to be slowly draining and spiraling closer to zero while we're trying to poke you from the other side with Yuriko. So I think cards like that have that life punishing effect are sort of the ones to mulligan for in those kind of pods.
Okay. Is there any pod that you see that you think that this deck is not really well built for? Because I know every time I see the double Rogsai Atali pod, I'm like, all right, guys, this is not my pod to win, but I sure am gonna keep interaction and pray that you guys don't.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example of the kind of pod that this deck is tuned to be that most other variants are not, right? In an all turbo pod, if you just land a turn one Damping Sphere or Null Rod, or maybe a Curse Totem against like a Kinnan type deck, or a Bloodchief Ascension with a counter so you think it can get online, none of those like three decks, Rogsai, Atali, am I super worried about, right? Because I'm never going to have enough counters in hand for all of them, which is the problem of, tempo
Yeah.
or mid range. But I can mulligan for Ancient Tomb Null Rod and say, I now get 5 more turns to figure it out, right? And you guys can sort of poke each other with silences until I do something. So I think I feel really, really good in an all turbo pod. The pods that are hardest to navigate are they are aggro decks. Those don't come up that often, but in a pod with, let's say, like a Winota or a Jetmir or something like that, where they
Yeah.
make a lot of creatures and their primary game plan is attacking. Those are really difficult to win because we're slowing down the table so much that it'll be flooded with creatures, and it's sort of hard to break
Yeah.
in.
And they're
I think
super happy to see us
similarly,
slowing it down. Yeah.
yeah, the Thrasios variants are probably my least favorite thing to see at the table. It's nice in that you don't think they're Thrasios is just such an efficient blocker for like everything. Like the 1/3 body that they never attack with is so good. And if you don't have Curse Totem, they just kind of slowly draw some cards and they're kind of leeching off of what you're doing. I'm slowing down the
Yeah.
table. And they get to just sit there and draw a card that they were doing anyway. So I think Thrasios variants are the least affected by what this deck is doing, and those are often like that's where you need to turn your focus. Is you try to stack up the board, and then you start pointing removal encounters at what you think would be the mid-range deck that's going to capitalize on this scenario, right?
Yeah. Because I know Thrasios decks love to see the game go long because they're more than happy to sit behind a Thrasios, maybe a Ristic Study,
Mhm.
help it out a little bit. Guys, I'm just drawing a couple cards, and then they've drawn 20. And at that point,
Yeah,
what can we do?
right. And the big difference being that those decks draw 20 while having several creatures in play. You compare that to
Exactly.
like Rog Ishai that people are sort of on right now. I don't really care about that deck at all. You can have two Ristics. Other people, maybe they're feeding you and you draw some cards, but like you don't play more removal than me.
Yeah.
And you don't play like any creatures. You're never going to be able to block my boys. You're like a free punching bag that just has 20 in hand, but you can't storm off, right? So that's the kind of mid-range deck, using air quotes, that I would love to see in a pod compared to some of like the green mid-range variants.
Very true. I definitely agree. I've seen Rogishai a handful of times. Now, giving everybody the benefit of the doubt, I've not played against Jace. I've not played against the notable Rogishai pilots. but every time I've seen the deck, I've never been afraid of it. I've always seen it as cool. There's another deck that doesn't want to lose turn 2. That's what I came for. And that means I have the free reign to kind of develop my game plan. And by the time they're kind of trying to develop their second, maybe third draw engine, I've got 2 or 3 ninjas on board. I could care less what's going on. I've got interaction. I've got my ninjas. At this point, we're just kind of swinging and hoping we flip what we want to be flipping, which they can't really interact with. And removing Yuriko doesn't do anything. So they're kind of stuck having to keep the game from closing from our other opponents while we're kind of given free reign to attack.
Yeah, I think just, talking about the pace that we're trying to play at, I was, just before this, I compiled some numbers. I was looking through, I have, I think, 110 games that I have a lot of stats on for the channel. And of those, played Yuriko 12 times, and the average winning turn is 7, the average losing turn is 8. In a sample at large of non-Yuriko games, the average losing turn is 3.5.
Oof.
So just like to show, I play a lot of different decks, on the channel, and to be, prepared for an open meta. And when Yuriko is in the pod, my variant also, this is about for control, the game just goes so long. Even if you're losing, it's because someone managed to break the lock on turn, 7, 8, 9, or something like that. It's I never have the problem where I'm losing to Turbo on turn 2, because most of the time they know not to try it. There's one Turbo deck. They look at me, they see me mull down to 4 and not play a 1-drop enabler on turn 1. I'm like, well, this guy obviously is only
he's just going to stop me.
Trap. I just gotta wait for backup. And you can just create that perception, the hidden information in your hand. Everyone looks at you with 3 cards like, dude, it's got to be Mindbreak, Trap, Flare, Force of Will. And I'm looking at, Ornithopter and 2 lands. But the perception is that everything in your deck is free. And they're never going to bust through the wall without protection or backup.
Precisely. And I think that's kind of what we want to be leaning into. Just about every archetype wants to be seen as, hey, you can go for it. I probably have an answer for it. So you better have backup. Which usually will delay people just enough for us to kind of set up what we want to be doing anyway. So I definitely think that's exactly what we want to be doing.
Yeah, I do think, now that I thought about it, in terms of what is my worst matchup, it is another Yuriko deck. I was talking about aggro creature decks, but Winota and Jenny, they don't come up. If it's me and another, a tempo or an aggro Yuriko, I'm going to slow down the other 2 decks, and they probably play more ninjas, more enablers. Their plan is getting online faster, and they're uninterrupted by me. So another Yuriko is the worst thing that can happen to me at the table, right? Which is it's sad. I think this variant is good into an open pod, but it is just objectively worse against other Yurikos.
I think that's hilarious. I'd love to see it, because I've seen a double Yuriko pod once, and my goodness, it's crazy how fast life totals go away with 2 Yurikos.
Yeah.
But now with a control Yuriko and say regular tempo Yuriko in the same pod, tempo Yuriko gets to just kind of freely do their thing.
Yeah. And there was a game that I uploaded recently that was a double Yuriko pod, and it was me against, it's sort of an aggro variant. It's the Punisher variant.
Oh, okay, yeah.
People have talked about. And in that one, Dan got off to a crazy early start, tons of ninjas blasting people, and I go turn 1 Blood Chief, turn 2 Null Rod. Still no creatures on board. I think turn 3 I cast a 1-drop. And it took, I think, 8 or 9 turns for me to eventually win that game, but it's only because I could convince everyone at the table, hey, that guy's clearly winning by. Can we just blow his board to bits over and over while I get to slowly just sit on this Blood Chief Ascension, right?
Guys, I'm not the problem, I swear.
But the whole game, it was an uphill battle of, dude, he's just doing everything I want to be doing, and I'm just doing these other 2,
Yeah. I get that, without a doubt. I think it's very funny to see a Yuriko deck that actually doesn't want to be with another Yuriko deck. But I can definitely see it,
Yeah,
because if your game plan is slow everyone else down, that's only helping the other Yuriko.
right.
Mm-mm-mm. Well, that actually answers all of my questions that I had. But I do want to ask, if you had to give the elevator pitch for the control slash stacks Yuriko archetype, like about one sentence, what would you say to anyone who wants to play a more controlling Yuriko?
I think if you are afraid of turbo, you play this deck, right? And honestly, if you like playing Magic, you're going to get to play a lot of it when we go to turn 8 every game, right? So I think Pal might have said it, but tempo is the best into a blind meta, right? And I don't
Mhm.
disagree with that. I think this deck is the best if you think you're going into a turbo slanted meta or a meta with a lack of green. It has a lot of tools to succeed in that environment. And if you like being overly political and sort of sitting in the background and biding your time, this has a lot of benefits to that play style compared to like aggro or combo or something more aggressive.
Nice. Well, I will say thank you for talking to me. I do appreciate it. We're almost through all of the Yuriko archetypes, because after this conversation, I'm going to go and talk to Music Soba. Get to finally figure out
Mm,
what combo is doing, really, because
that man
I
is
have
a
no
mad
idea what's
scientist.
going on. He sure is, but I gotta respect it, because you know what? I love seeing Yuriko do things that no one's really expecting it to do, which gives it
I
that
agree.
that surprise factor.
And while I may argue that, control's the best variant, people should play this, I think the fact that there are 6 or 7 ways you can play the deck, it makes it easier for each of us because when you sit down, people might expect a control deck and you're playing aggro, or they might think you're playing control and you're a combo deck like Soba and you're, gonna Narset Windfall or something insane. So like people not knowing how the deck plays because of all the variants, I think serves to benefit all of us in like an open tournament setting.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. But I'll be linking your deck list as well as the channel that you post all your gameplay to, so anyone can watch. You do get to see a lot of Yuriko gameplay. I love watching it, especially the double Yuriko pod that he just recently uploaded. But I definitely will be linking all the information, your deck list, the YouTube channels in below. And once again, thank you for talking with me. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
So we've talked control. So now it's only right that we talk combo. Music00 Soba is our combo king in the Yuriko Discord. So let's see what he has to say about the unique take on Yuriko he's got. Well, to get us started, could you tell me who you are and what archetype of Yuriko you play?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Music00 Soba, and I pioneered this kind of weirdo Yuriko combo build. It's built around, I mean, really, right now it's built around Displacer Kitten and Kaito. The whole idea is you reduce the number of dead cards that you're drawing in the late game and in the mid game, like turns 3, 4, and 5. So stuff like the one drop dorks, ninjas that don't explicitly say win the game on them, that sort of thing, and focus entirely on everything that draws, like either replaces itself immediately or generates so much value when you play it that you can completely outpace everything that's happening at the table and convert those pieces into combo pieces with a card like Displacer Kitten or Valley Flood Caller. And you try to win the game, not necessarily with combat damage, though. It's it's not
It
that
could
hard to
happen.
win with combat damage when you make infinite mana. Yeah, you can kind of just do whatever you want,
Yeah.
um, and and you have fun with Kitty. I like playing Displacer Kitten. I think it's a cool card, so I like playing it in this deck.
I can definitely get that. And like I said with the a control variant. This is probably the archetype of Yuriko I have the least experience with or against because it's just so different than what the usual Yuriko game plan is.
Yeah.
So how did you come to building Yuriko in this way? Because this is, as I said, just it's so different than what we're usually trying to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I initially started as a tempo player, like everybody probably, who's ever been interested in Yuriko, and back when it was just before Nanogene conversion got printed was when I really started going to a lot of tournaments, and I was really struggling to like get far with that, but like the null rod plan worked, but it worked a little too well. Like every game I would get a null rod into play, and then the game would slow down so much that I would go to time every game, and so then I started cutting a lot of the stacks pieces and started trying to focus more on like hard value engines, stuff like Clever Impersonator and copy enchantments and steal enchantments. And I found myself, just experiencing a lot of success doing that. So then I kept leaning into that more. And then Nanogene conversion got printed. And I was like, oh, this is like really cool. I want to build everything around this card. If you look at the build of Combo Yuriko that I have on the Discord now, Nanogene conversion is very obviously absent. We're not focusing on that card anymore. But that card and sort of a lot of the arguments that I had with people in the tempo build section of the Discord, where I was like, "Hey guys, this card's really good. We should be testing this card more. You guys need to try this card out." Led to me just completely restarting from scratch, and like sort of through first principles, I ended up with a lot of the same cards, of course, like Changeling Outcast, Ornithopter, Memnite, like Ginger Brute. And all those pieces, they still make sense in this deck because you still have Yuriko as the face commander. But as I kept on trying to rebuild Yuriko from first principles, I noticed that like I had completely dropped a lot of the sort of ninja stuff from the deck. Like you still get to do cool ninja stuff, but you're doing it kind of at a skew. And that ended up sort of over time organically growing into something where I had completely dropped any pretense of being a tempo deck at all and was entirely focused on combo. And eventually, like Nanogene conversion, though it was a great card and it did lead to my like 150 game plus win streak across like multiple Discords and tournaments, I did end up dropping it because of Kaito getting printed. Kaito's printing was what like fundamentally changed the way that I looked at like this deck, because all of a sudden, there was a value engine in this deck that essentially from nothing could completely, like you could completely rebuild everything. Like you could start with this card in play on turn 1 or 2 just by dark redding it out, or swing it into play, or you can put it into play on turn 10 and end up drawing so many cards off of it that it doesn't matter. And because it was a planeswalker, of course, being a planeswalker and a creature, being a legacy player and having seen what everybody was doing with Displacer Kitten at the same time, thought to myself, what if I do the Teferi Mox Amber thing that everybody in Legacy is doing with Kitten, but with Kaito? And I realized, like, oh, if you just have Kaito and Kitten play, you just win. Like, at the time with the way that the deck was built, there were still like 30-something creatures in the deck, which made it a little difficult to consistently trigger Kitten over and over again as you dug through your deck. But as I whittled it down and started putting more and more non-creature spells in the deck, it started becoming like a 95% win rate if I got both those permanents into play, because every time you activate Kaito, you see 5, like you're casting stock up for every Kaito activation. And every non-creature spell that you cast, if it's positive mana, you're now casting a stock up and also making mana, and then you're drawing additional cards, and then if you get 2 copies of Kitten into play,
it goes crazy.
It just goes nuts. And so that devolved into this, sort of pile of cards that, everybody knows as the combo build now. There's a lot of strange pieces in there, but I'm happy to tell you about them.
I can definitely see a few of them. So I know you've already said that like your main combo that you're usually trying to assemble is Displacer Kitten and Kaito.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other tangential combos that kind of layer with that, or is that like the main one that you've just built more support for that?
So everything in the deck, if it doesn't work with Kitten, it either doesn't go in the deck, or it has to be something that is so powerful on its own that it doesn't really matter whether or not it works with Kaito or with Kitten, excuse me.
Okay.
Like in the 1-drop slots, most of those cards don't really work with Kitten, except for when they do. Like Flitterwing Nuisance, a newer printing from the when they did their redux of what is that?
Lorwyn.
Of Lorwyn. Flittering Nuisance at first glance, like it just, it looks like a 1/1 flyer that seems pretty bad in general. Like it's like, why not play Fairy Seer in that slot? Because it also works with Kitten. It allows you to scry 2 every time you cast a spell. Well, Flittering Nuisance is an infinite mana outlet. As long as you have a creature with haste, like Gingerbrute or a Yuriko that's been in play for 1 or 2 turn cycles, if you can generate infinite mana, you can draw your entire library because you can just keep activating it every time that you flicker it with Kitten. Gran with stuff like Harmonized Trio, like this, sort of new standard combo. Gran, like you can flicker it with Kitten to technically get pseudo Vig, but also untap her to allow you to tap her multiple times with Harmonized Trio or something like Paradise Mantle in order to just continuously loop through your library. Thundertrap Trainer's in the deck because it draws a card, so you can flicker it with Kitten over and over again.
Draw cards. Yeah.
Hit.
Okay.
Cloud of Fairies is another, like it you can flicker it with Kitten and you make 2 mana. It's
Okay. I see
a
what
lot
we're
of the
trying to do.
yeah, exactly. And a lot of
Okay.
the like other pieces like Tezzeret doesn't necessarily at first glance look like a combo piece that combos with Kaito necessarily, but because you can tutor Sensei's Top with Tezzeret and continue to tutor the Sensei's Top over and over again, you can continue to flicker the Kaito over and over again, or you can just draw the Sensei's Top with Kaito and continue to dig through the deck. Roaming Throne works with Kitten because you could name Beast with it, so now you have 2 copies of Kitten in play. It's all layers where it's built around being these pieces that are just incredibly valuable on their own, but then as soon as you get a Kitten into play, they immediately
go crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So I assume that means that if looks like the deck's built around finding and casting Displacer Kitten.
Yep.
Which notably 4 whole mana, which in the world of Yuriko might as well be 1 million.
Right?
Might as well be. So because I know that you're on a pretty decent mana rock package that frankly most Yuriko decks just never see. Because I think for the most part, Yurikos are getting to the point where Soul Ring is looking real cuttable for most Yuriko builds. But I see we're on just about every free rock we can play, all the 1 mana ones, even some of the 2 mana ones, and it seems like we're really, really trying to get as much mana as quickly as possible. And I'm guessing it's because you want to get Kitten down as soon as possible.
Yep. Yeah, the Yuriko players, the sort of traditional heuristic is that Soul Ring is like the worst card in the deck because you can't ninjutsu Yuriko off of it. But I think that like one of the reasons that I ended up pivoting so hard away from the tempo build was because I was like, why aren't we utilizing this card as effectively as possible? Like we're in one of 2 formats that's allowed to play the most broken rocks in Magic's history. Of course, not the original Moxen and not Lotus, but
of course, yeah.
Soul Ring, Mana Vault, Mana Crypt when that was available. All the other super powerful Moxen like Diamond, Amber, Chrome Mox, Opal. Why aren't we playing those cards? And the argument is like, well, we're a tempo build. We don't need to ramp. We just need to get on board and beat down. And we have Null Rod in our deck. But I think that if you're playing this format and you're not able to consistently make use of these rocks, then you need to have really, really powerful reasons why. Yeah. And I found that in playing these, it allows you to do some really fun, goofy, pardon my French, bullshit with it, like putting Displacer Kitten into play on turn 2, or putting a Roaming Throne into play on turn 2. Like if you play these, you will be able to use them, even with Null Rod in it. Like I've played versions of this deck with Null Rod in it when Dockside Extortionist was still legal in the format, because you have ways to bounce it in the deck itself, but also like you can just not play around the artifact. Like, you don't have to. It's fine. It sucks when you have this Nambo, but at the same time, like if you can power out a Null Rod on turn 1 along with a 1-drop, because you went, say, land drop, Mana Vault, Felwar Stone, Mox Opal, cast your 1-drop, cast Null Rod, you now are so far ahead of everybody
You're
else.
real far ahead at that point.
And then in the late game, you're still set up because you have all this mana. You just use Chain of Vapor, Retraction, Helix, Boomerang Basics, Odor, anything, and you can bounce that permanent, and then you don't have to worry about getting all your stuff turned off.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
But
well, then,
on top of that, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no problem.
I think that those rocks though are so important because this deck typically, like Dimir in general, one of its biggest weaknesses is making tons of mana.
Yeah.
Like we don't have Gaia's Cradle, we don't have Sarah's.
It won't give us blue Gaia's Cradle because it would be too good.
They banned it from the format 20 years ago because it was problematic for the health of the game. Okay, whatever, man. Let me
make 14 blue mana on turn 1, guys. Come on.
Please, come on. So, with that being banned, like, we might as well take advantage of the options that we have. Like, the easy ones, being like Dark Ritual and Culling the Weak. But beyond that, like, these colorless rocks, like, they're available to us. And if every other deck in the format is playing them, why aren't we? Like, so I went in with explicitly saying that to myself. Like, I want to make sure that I have a reason to be playing these cards. And like Roaming Throne and Nanogene Conversion, when those were first printed, were my primary reasons for playing these cards. But over time, like those reasons have expanded. Like I want to be using my Grim Monolith every turn. I want to be using my Mana Vault every turn. I want to use the Soul Ring every turn. And these more expensive permanents like Roaming Throne, Kitten, Valley Flood Caller, Tezzeret give you really good reasons to use those consistently. So
very true. Well, I guess I know a question that I have thought of when I first saw this when I started playing Yuriko a little bit ago, as well as I know that it comes up now. Why use Yuriko for this kind of strategy? Because at least I know when I first looked at it, I'm looking at the cards. I'm like, all right, so we want to make mana, we want to draw cards, so we want to assemble this combo that will win the game. Why not play like, what's the other blue-black commander's name? Talion.
Like Sig,
or why not play like Sig or anything that gives you a third color by chance? Like, why keep this idea and strategy with Yuriko?
I mean, part of it is that I'm a huge, stubborn, bullheaded goober who.
Bro, you too?
Told,
man.
I've been told by, name a cEDH YouTuber, and I have probably played a game against them where they asked me this exact. They were like, "Why the hell are you playing this deck and this combination of cards? Why aren't you playing literally anything else?" And I'm like, honest to God, part of it is because I'm so stubborn, and people keep asking me that, and I keep telling them that the reason you like
funny ninjas. I don't know.
Ask me that question, but also part of it is that I've played Rogsai, I've played TNK, TNT, like I've played almost every single deck in the format except for like whatever random green red like Tron bullshit. I don't touch like the really weirdo like D tier, C tier stuff. But I have played every S, A, and B tier deck in the format in some form or fashion at some point in those decks' histories. And every time that I play them, like I enjoy them, but I enjoy having a dirt cheap, uncounterable card draw engine in the command zone more than any other possible option. Even with the color limitations that are placed on Yuriko, having access to Psychic Frog in the command zone is good. Like I don't want to play T and K because it's not a Psychic Frog. Like I don't get a guaranteed card every game on turn 2, no matter what. With that deck, it's probably like 96% of the time you probably will have taken out on turn 2. But for those games where you don't get to do that and you mull poorly, like you don't get to draw that extra card, those games feel so bad for me that I would rather play a deck that always has a mulligan game plan that is built around a card draw engine more than anything else. So I've stuck with Yuriko for this long. Also, I think I guess this is sort of like tertiary reason. I do really particularly enjoy making my friends who play Magic somewhat casually mad that I play Yuriko, because all of them hate Yuriko, and they hate the fact that commander tax doesn't apply to her. They hate that they can't counter her. They hate that they can't remove her. And I'm like, guys, like just put a 2/2 blocker in
It's
front of her.
just
Like
blockers,
just
guys. That's all you
put a
need.
blocker in play, and she can't do anything. Like I lose the game if you play a 2/2 lifelink. Like Timna is so good against this deck. Because it
Literally
just
just play Timna, guys. That's all you got to do.
It's all you got to
That's
do.
the
And you can
secret tech to beat Yuriko.
That's the crazy part. And players are so greedy, and they're so focused on like their own personal game plans, that they don't think about the kinds of stories that you're telling with the game plan that you have going. Like if I have a 1/3 creature and you put a 2/2 in front of it, I can't get through. I can't do anything about it. So
Yeah.
yeah. But I think I guess the real reason that I really enjoy it, I think, is how weird like the creature combo stuff is in Dimir. Like Kitten
Yeah.
and Floodcaller are kind of your only options. There's like, builds that I've tested with like Arcanus and oh man, who's the Necropotence that Crick
Zer?
uses? No, there's a creature that's like, it's like Asmodeus, the Archfiend.
Oh, as a mode. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tested all these like different reanimator builds. I've tested like these creature combos with like Arcanus and Agatha's Soul Cauldron, and I've tested like, I mean, any number of different like weird creature combos and different combinations of colors in it with different commanders than Yuriko and Dimir, Hullbreaker Horror, whatever you name it. But like the really strange ninjutsu like combos are like at their core the thing that I enjoy doing the most in this deck. Like making infinite copies of Memnite off of Thousand Face Shadow and Sakashima Student with like weird board setups where like an
Yeah.
opponent has a copy of Cloud of Fairies and I have a roaming throne, so I can copy the Cloud of Fairies with Sakashima Student and then copy the Sakashima Student with Thousand
Yeah.
Face Shadow, and then you end up like making infinite Memnites for damage or something. Like I love the combat step. I love abusing it. I love all of the weird rulings about ninjutsu, and that's like at its core what I do to win the game. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I could technically win the game by just emptying my library with Kitten and Kaito and then playing a Thassa's Oracle, or I could like make
Or I
1,000
could hit
copies
you.
of like I could hit you for like 1,000,000,000 damage with like a bunch of Valley Flood colors. Like one of those sounds more fun to me than the other.
Exactly. I get that. I
So,
do think that obviously, if you're a seasoned Yuriko player and you come looking at this deck list, I can definitely see where they're like, I have no idea what's going on. And like super fair, because I get it. Because that's exactly what I was thinking when I was looking at this deck. And I'll admit, to me, it feels like, because I do subscribe to the idea that I think Yuriko is a control deck at heart, but I do agree that like I don't think we should be trying to build a control deck, because I don't think that that's the deck that wins the game. It might delay it, but I oftentimes don't think it wins. And so
if
I
you go
do
to
subscribe to
time, it
the
doesn't matter what
winning
happens.
game.
Yeah, like you
That's
gotta
true.
win somehow.
Yeah. And I think us pushing for wins is what we want to be doing. So I do like seeing that this is a build of Yuriko that says, yeah, we could play Counterspell Tribal, or we could win the game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe we want to do that instead. And I like seeing that kind of that thought process, and not just in combo, but like in other archetypes of Yuriko, trying to push forward those win attempts. Because I know, at least in my experience, whenever I've seen other Yuriko decks, and after a couple turns, you can usually pick out, if you've played Yuriko, or if you've played enough against enough Yuriko, you can typically figure out what kind of build they're on after a turn or two. And if they're not on an aggressive slant of Yuriko, I'm not worried. Because to me, it's a similar thing to whenever I see a Ragisha. I'm like, cool. They got my counter spells. I can be greedy. Super great for me. And I don't think that's a position that like Yuriko pilots want to be in, because that's only going to waste the interaction you do have in your hand, because everyone's just pass priority to you. And that means that if you're answering the problems, that means someone else, after whoever just got stuffed in their win attempt, can now go for it. And if you don't just have every answer in your deck ready, you probably aren't winning that game. And I don't think that's a scenario we want to be in, because it seems like that's what it's always doing.
Yeah, I mean, people can look up my like win-loss ratio from before I started building this combo deck when I was playing like null rod builds and then energy conversion builds, and you could literally see like my win rate was like it was like 90% draws with like one win, like
Oh,
1% wins and like 9% losses, because every single game was going to time. I was really struggling to close games out, and part of it was like I was a newer Magic player and wasn't as confident in my ability to tell other players, hey, I'm going to call a judge on you if you don't start taking game actions. But
yeah.
also like games would go to like turn 15, turn 20, and I'd be sitting there doing nothing. Like I couldn't close out games because I had no tutors. I had too many counter spells, and I'd sit there with 5 or 6 different pieces of of stacks, and I'm just playing Protect the Queen.
Yeah.
And like that in 60 card, you have the ability
You can get
to
there in 60 card.
you can get there
There's
in
only
60
one
card.
person you got to deal with.
Yep, but with this format, like you don't get 3 games in a match. You get one. And it was not like something that was acceptable to me to sit there and spend $30 to go to a tournament and then spend another $30 in
Draw.
gas driving up to Milwaukee and then draw 5 games in a row. That's just I don't want to spend my money doing that. And I set out with a very explicit goal with this deck to like I'm either winning the game or I'm losing the game, and I'm never drawing. I will not accept a draw. Like
Yeah.
and you can see like all of a sudden the number of games that I was losing went up by probably like 50%, but also my win rate went up by 50%. So I ended up evening out completely.
Yeah.
Like, I end up with more points overall and like better stats. Like I top forward like 2 Magicons and multiple like 128 player events across the Midwest, and like I just kept dominating with this deck, and that wasn't happening when I was playing Null Rod. So for me, I'm not saying this like, hey guys, stop playing Null Rod. I think Null Rod's a great card. But for me personally, it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
And this deck did, so that, I feel pretty happy with it.
Yeah. And obviously, we're not saying that if you're not playing the combo version of Yuriko, you're not playing the deck right.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's
Yes,
not true.
that's not what
There's
I'm
a lot
saying
of
at all.
archetypes. There's a lot of deck lists. There's a lot of pilots. Like Coco has notoriously won tournaments with Yuriko, and he plays tempo Yuriko to a T.
Yeah.
And I believe his deck might even be the like the standard by which we describe all of the other tempo decks.
Yeah, exactly.
And he hasn't changed in I want to say it's been a couple months, but like that deck still just wins games, and that's because he knows the deck, he knows how to talk to people, and it fits his play style. So it's not so much that like, hey, this is the best version of Yuriko. This is the one that fits for Soba. And
Exactly.
if you want to play it, if this aligns with what you want to be doing, then I think this will work for you. But I think finding out what works for you, what kind of play style you have, and then figuring out how to get Yuriko or whatever deck you really want to play to align with that will really be the jumping off point for anybody.
I 100% agree. That, I mean, my success with this deck is not even necessarily because of the deck itself, and it's not like even because I took it with the starting off point of like the tempo build. This deck wins with me because I spent 2,500 games playing it, and I know every card in it like the back of my hand, and I know exactly what I should be doing in every situation. Like if you want to win tournaments, if you want to win lots of games, you want to beat your friends at kitchen table and make them feel so bad that they stop playing with you, you need to find a deck and stick with it. And like and that was like the best advice that I ever got was people saying at like Legacy FNMs. I would show up with a new deck every week that I'd print out, and after like 6 months of doing that and only getting like maybe one win a night and a draw and a loss, and never like breaking even on the $15 that I'd spend. One of the older fellas was like, hey, you should pick one deck and play nothing but that. And it'll take you a while to find it, but I found my deck. This is the thing that I like to do the most when I play Magic. It's this weird combo bullshit, and for me it wins,
Yeah.
And it's led to success in other formats with other decks. It's led to success in this format with other decks, but because I understand this deck so well, it's allowed me to then understand what other players are doing with their decks better.
Exactly.
So
I definitely agree because I know I've been in the similar boat. I believe that if you want to win games, unfortunately, you have to spend that first 1,000 games taking the L. That's just kind of what has to happen because you got to learn your deck. You need to figure out what it wants to be doing, figure out how you can be the pilot to match that deck. And once you've gotten all those things down, you'll feel the deck start to click into place and you'll start to win those games. So I definitely do agree with you there. And I think this deck in particular is a perfect example of why you can't just pick up any deck off the street and just go and win a game. Because I have tried just goldfishing this deck, and I'm truthfully don't know what I'm looking for in the opening hands. So I definitely get that, like, it would take time. And I like what this deck's wanting to do. Because I think going on this off-axis thing that no one's really expecting from Yuriko is an advantage into itself. But because you know what you're looking for, if your opponents do anything incorrect, more often than not, that's just a win for you because you can just capitalize on it.
I mean,
that.
I can't tell you how many times I have been sitting at a table. I mean, the Magicon the last one that I went to where I top forward, the last time they had it here in Chicago, there was in my top 16 game, it was a Kinnan player, a Grark Psy player, and then I think it was like TNT. And I sat down with them and I was like, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And they went, "Whoa, a Yuriko player in top 16!" Like they were like, "Oh, it's the magical unicorn.
Oh
like,
no!
How did you make it here?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah,
Right.
I play like kind of a weirdo build, but I don't really do the burn thing. That's not really my angle. It's like I kind of just like to do my own thing, and like have like weird value engines and stuff." And they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, for sure." And I played a turn one fish in seat 2.
Yep.
And then all of them cast all of their rocks into it because
Of
all of
course
them were
they do.
expecting me to not be able to play anything off of
Oh,
it.
that's control
And
Yuriko. Yeah, you give them the
yeah, it's
counter spells.
control
Yeah.
Yuriko. Like just give me the counter spells, and then and then you pass the turn. And all of them were sitting there with like 2 or 3 cards in hand. And the first thing that I did was play a Vexing Bauble, and I watched all of their faces like immediately drop as they were like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, we just
We might
gave
be
the
dead,
game
boys.
away."
We might be dead, boys. That might be it.
I go Vexing Bauble, Culling the Weak, into a defense grid plus a DT, into Mox, Tezzeret, go find Kitten, go find Sensei's Top, win the game, draw my entire library on turn 2.
Insane.
I mean, that's the Brewers' advantage there, but
Yeah.
that's also like why I like this build of the deck is because you like not just because you have the Brewers' advantage of doing that, which like people won't be expecting it, but also because when people do just dump out the rocks, like a thing that I would struggle with before, like when I pioneered the Emrakul Yuriko build, for tempo. I don't know how many people ever ended up actually building that out, but that was one of the reasons why like I played Mystic Remora in the deck back before like Nanogene conversion got printed, was so that I could find like my Soul Ring and my Mana Vault and Moxen to
Just
put
cast
out
it.
an early Emrakul on like turn 4 and just dumpster people with it. And
Yeah.
that
Pretty good.
opens up a whole new world for you when you have that mana.
Oh yeah. Well, I do want to say I think this is probably is a strong word. I think this is more than likely the most unique archetype for Yuriko. And obviously, like as new cards come out, as new things release, obviously combos can be added, lost, as someone even said. Nanogene was what started it, and Nanogene, it's not even in here anymore.
Yeah.
So obviously we can see the new cards being printed and the list obviously constantly being updated. So like if you were wanting to keep up with this, I would highly advise joining the Discord, checking through the combo Discord channels, check through all of them, figure out which one you appeals to you the most. Because I think all of these lists, I know mine changes almost daily.
Yeah.
Almost daily. I'm changing. But I do want to ask if anyone's interested in like kind of exploring this version of Yuriko, is there like an elevator pitch you would give to the combo Yuriko archetype?
Oh yeah. Oh man. I think if I had to pitch anybody on anything, it's do you like casting Ancestral Recall
Yeah, all right.
40 times in one turn? If you do, then play this deck. It's so much fun. Like Kaito, if you have played any other format with Kaito in it, and you thought that Kaito was the most broken card in that form, if you've played Standard, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, or Vintage, and you've played Kaito in 60 card, and you understand how broken this card is, you will love playing this deck because it is so much fun when Kaito says draw 3 cards instead of draw 1 card.
Yeah.
And also because I mean I take a pretty I'm a very liberal sort of approach to this deck building. I will put and I will test any cards that you want to play with. Like if people, please feel free to message me about like stuff that you're interested in trying out if you're or even just posting in the Discord about it. And I'm more than happy to test your cards out. I mean I have tested a lot of cards out. I've tested most stuff. So you really got to find the really weird stuff for me to tell you,
Haven't tried it yet
before. But
yeah.
like this week, I'm testing Fortune Teller's Talent, which I don't know how many people have heard of that card, but I've been like extremely impressed with the performance of many of the different like Storm Chaser's Talent is in the deck right now, which is another very powerful standard card that people thought were going to get banned a couple weeks ago, and it didn't. But probably should have. Whatever. But these cards coming out of standard, like they keep printing these 1-drops that have creatures stapled to them. It's fun if you want to try them out. Like this is the deck to test them in because there's some weird ones out there.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Well, I want to say thank you for coming and talking to me. I really do appreciate it. I've always kind of wanted to learn more about the combo Yuriko because, oh boy, this is a lot of cardboard that I don't know what they do. But if anyone really wants to get in contact with you, reach out to you, see the list. Obviously, I'll be leaving links to the deck list below, as well as the Discord, because that's where you can find any and all of us. Ask questions. We're basically always online.
Yeah.
Basically always. So don't hesitate to reach out to us anytime. Hop in the Discord, reach out to us. And is there anything you'd like to say to anyone before we leave?
Man, if I had anything I could say to anybody, PyQ, I appreciate the attempts to make me play Doomsday, and I think you're probably right that it is a good card, but I will not be putting it in the deck. It's not going in. I'm sorry.
But it's so good.
I don't know.
Well, thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one with the last pair of archetypes, which will be Aggro and Reanimator. Be easy.